Immigration, or ICE, is reporting more than 270,000 deportations over the recent financial year, which ended on September 30. Now, this figure is the highest tally in a decade that covered the terms of Presidents Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Barack Obama. According to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras were the most common destinations for deportees. Those who were forced to leave mostly crossed through the southern border, about a third of whom have either been convicted of or are facing criminal charges in America. The 12-month period when the massive removal of illegal residents occurred coincided with the U.S. presidential campaign. Now, that campaign highlighted Trump's promise to launch the largest crackdown on immigration in U.S. history. Trump assumes power on January 20 of next year. Of course, the question we're all asking here in the Philippines, what could this development mean for undocumented Filipinos in the U.S.? Let's ask that to our first guest tonight. We have Foreign Affairs Undersecretary for Migration, Vega, joining us tonight via Zoom. Thanks for taking our call, Yusek.
Good evening. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any data right now out of the 271,000 that were deported? How many Filipinos were included in that list?
No, we don't have the data on that right now, but let me clarify. We have to emphasize a point. Everybody has been acting very, concerned or scared about what would happen to the undocumented Filipinos once Trump, President-elect Donald Trump, takes over exactly a month from now. Let us remember, we have to put it in perspective. During the campaign, when he was talking about massive deportations, he was specifying a certain kind of overstaying or illegal alien. Number one, criminals, because he was always accusing a lot of these foreigners without legal stay of having committed crimes against Americans. Number two, security risks, because there was the allegation that some may have entered from terrorist groups around the world. And mostly, he was targeting those foreigners who were brought in by President Biden and who are not actually contributing to the U.S. economy because all they do is receive social welfare. The Filipinos, legal or even illegal, do not fall under those categories. So I would like to emphasize, there is no reason for now to be overly concerned, because if we actually keep talking about it, we will just be raising attention to ourselves, to the fact that there are 300,000 overstaying Filipinos. So the trick is for our Filipinos who are not overstaying to simply continue doing their work and to be law-abiding residents, even though they're not documented in the United States. I can tell you the statistics do show that there were more people who were deported, including more Filipinos deported during the Obama administration than the previous 4-year administration of President Trump. So when our ambassador to the United States was advising overstaying Filipinos to go home, he was just giving friendly advice to those who were overly concerned about it, and telling them, well, if you can go home on your own. Because if you go home now, you might not be permanently banned from going back or entering the United States again. Whereas if you are deported, part of that means you will never be able to get back to the United States. That's the first thing we want to emphasize. Let's wait for the new administration to take over and see what happens.
Yusek, just to be clear, I want to go back to Sean's first question. Out of the 271,000, there are no Filipinos, or are there Filipinos included in that batch that have been deported?
Which is this 271,000?
Fiscal year that was released, I think September of last year to September 2024.
For sure, there would be Filipinos. We would not. I would not know the exact number of Filipinos, but for sure there would be Filipinos. Yes.
What would be the top reasons of the 350,000 illegal Filipinos staying in the United States? Why haven't they gotten themselves legally registered? And we are number 5 out of the 10 countries that have been released in this Department of Homeland Security report. Mexico having 4.8 million illegal immigrants, Philippines having 350,000. What would be the top reasons to not get your papers right?
Well, first of all, perhaps they're not qualified to get their papers right. Secondly, these Filipinos may already be satisfied with the current situation, wherein they're just quietly there working. I will say, though, it's not for lack of trying. I have myself been assigned to the United States on a few occasions. I know a lot of these overstaying or undocumented Filipinos want to get themselves fully legalized, and they have a battery of immigration lawyers, including Philippine-American lawyers, and they're trying to do it. Right now, though, given that the declarations of the new administration are not sympathetic to the presence of overstaying or undocumented aliens, well, all the more we don't see that there will be a lot of attempts to legalize themselves. However, again, the new administration has not yet taken over. Let's remember, during his first term, President Trump promised to build a wall. There's no, between the United States and Mexico, there's not even 10 feet of that wall. So let us see what happens.
Okay, Yusek, is the DFA helping with that? Are you offering any legal assistance to those undocumented Filipinos who want to make their stay legitimate in the U.S.?
Well, they haven't requested for legal assistance, and it is an open question according to the rules, including the rules for our legal assistance fund, as to whether that can be used to apply for legalization. What it definitely could be used for is, a legal assistance fund is if they are already facing charges, if they already are in court, in which case, in case they need a lawyer, then they could avail themselves or request for assistance to legal assistance fund. But again, the United States is a unique case. There are a lot of lawyers offering pro bono services, and these Filipinos are comfortable with these lawyers, meaning not asking funds. Let me tell you, we do have in our records some cases where Filipino Americans have requested assistance, but they're for different purposes at all and not for legalization. However, in case they request, then we will see if we could consider it.
Yusek, if, like you mentioned earlier, some Filipinos who are not staying in the U.S. legally, they kind of do not, kumbaga, takot sila, no, that they won't pass the requirements or something like that. But can you give us an idea of what is the biggest hindrance, to not pass the requirement? Is it a financial thing? Is it a paperwork thing?
Essentially, not a paperwork thing or a financial thing, although those are issues. It's the fact that they may be engaged in activities which, in the American point of view, is not a crucial activity needing the presence of foreigners. Now, if a Filipino, um, for example, a student uh, who is there and wants to convert his or her visa to a work visa, or a Filipino who is there as a spouse, meaning spouse of an American citizen, and they're not entitled to work. If they want to convert it to a visa which allows them to work, if they're engaged in a very particular job, which requires absolute expertise, which is rare to obtain, then it is rather easy to get that permit from U.S. authorities. Now, the majority of Filipinos in the United States may be engaged in office work, which for Americans are not a particular, I'm sorry, for the U.S. authorities
crucial
are not
industry.
particular in field which wherein there's an emergency of positions to fill. But for example, if they were nuclear scientists, you know, highly
Skilled,
technical, medical workers, yes. And but the thing is, for Filipinos who fit the bill, they already are registered. They already are legal. Precisely. So,
Okay.
Yusek,
again, yes.
I can imagine the level of anxiety that these illegal immigrants have, considering the options. One would be to just be a law-abiding citizen. The other is to obtain legal remedies. The other one is to go home. But what would be the practical advice that you can give? What work should they apply for to give themselves a stronger chance at qualifying?
Well, the higher the educational level needed to fulfill or to obtain that particular position, the better the chance. So certainly scientists, highly skilled computer experts, medical professionals would be favored. But that is the issue again. For those fields, Filipinos already do have the permit.
O
To work there.
mag-asawa na lang.
Oo nga,
Mag-asawa ng Amerikano.
Pero yun. Pero
Yun
ito
nga,
pa,
isn't that
our
that's really,
consulates,
that's a scary
our
one.
consulates had a meeting. Our consulates in the U.S. had a meeting a few weeks ago, which we discussed, and they're all committed to talking to Filipino community leaders and Filipino American leaders to see how they can help. And right now, though, we have to see how this new administration
Correct me if
will
I'm wrong.
be fulfilling their promises. Because as I said, they will not instinctively be targeting Filipinos or even other Asians for that matter. Because, and this is very politically incorrect, but we have to state the truth. It seems to me that President Trump is more inclined to have deported aliens whose native language is Spanish.
Oh.
And,
They are the biggest
that is
number.
because a lot of them, well, a lot of Hispanics are very important to the U.S. economy. There have been a lot who were brought there and up to now are not actually engaged in any meaningful profession or just receiving doleouts from the government. That is
Understood.
accused. So again, the best is the higher the educational requirement needed for this. You see, that's the likelier thing. But may I recommend the Filipinos to continue to engage with our consulates and embassies to see how they could advise you and therefore. But you know, mga kababayan natin sa US, they're kind of smart. They know how to take care of themselves. Tsaka may pera yan kahit paano, no? I mean, hingi sila ng tulong, but they can afford certainly tickets or play. By the way, kung i-deport naman, hindi naman nahihingita ng pera yan for the ticket kasi US ang magbabayad yan eh. By the way, our consulars are committed to issue the necessary travel documents para hindi na tumagal sa detention center in case mahuli. Now,
Yusek?
um,
Yusek, is sobrang
You know,
interesting when you said no,
yes.
that the U.S. will, kumbaga, more likely to consider those that are in high-paying jobs, high educational attainment, yung mga scientist, doktor, etc., nurse, right? But syempre, yung mga illegal migrants, yung profile is obviously hindi sila nasa ganung mga trabaho. Pero sa ibang bansa, no, correct me if I'm wrong, parang they would say na, like we like to get migrants kasi the people who live in that country, they don't want to do menial jobs anymore.
Blue-collar
Yes.
jobs. Oh.
Right? Hindi ba nag-hold through ito sa America? That's, I think, mostly in Europe.
Well, one thing also kasi sa Europe, in fact, sa Europe, kahit na illegal ka, in many countries, after a certain number of years, automatic pwede ka magpa-legalize. You see? Now, there's one reason to consider. In Europe, they need people. They have small population growth. Whereas sa United States, the population is steady. The population growth and the number of Americans is not dwindling. So, whereas in Europe, they talk about the, the scarcity of Europeans now getting married and giving birth to new Europeans. So that partly explains why they are quite eager to accept Filipinos. Now, sa US, yes, that's true. But there are millions and millions, hindi lang Filipino, of foreigners occupying those jobs. And besides, okay, what are we talking about? I think you're talking about dishwasher, waiter, di ba ganon yun?
Agriculture,
Yung mga ayaw ko din ng mga Native Americans, meaning native-born Americans. So, tagalinis ng kalsada, I assume all of you in the States, Filipinos don't occupy those jobs. They don't. I don't. I mean, so I was in New York for 3 years. I don't think I saw a single Filipino sweeping the street or working as a gardener. Not a single one. They were mostly different nationalities. So that would not apply. If the Filipinos there are working, well, I suppose that's in the East Coast. Maybe sa New York, sa California, iba, no? Pero kunyari, mga Filipino, baka may iba sa factories, maybe, madali para sa Amerikano to fill up that position. There will always be another alien, legal pa, who would occupy it. At any rate, I'm confident yung mga Pilipino who are just working will continue to be allowed to work. Pero kung Filipino na, I'm afraid to undocumented Filipinos, no? Pero kung illegal Filipino, tapos involved in drug smuggling, ganyan,
Naman.
Well, Yusek, I was just about to ask that also because
baka
President...
mahuli sila.
Oo, sabi
Yes.
nga po ni President-elect Donald Trump, he will be targeting criminal migrants first. So, with that in mind, is that a reason for undocumented Filipinos na huwag masyadong mag-worry considering or assuming na hindi sila kriminal? And my question also is, sino po ba yung pwedeng i-classify or consider as a criminal? Because according to ICE data, most offenses of undocumented immigrants are actually minor infractions such as traffic violations or DUIs.
Oo, less than 1% yung mga convicted daw sa homicide or charged with homicide.
I reiterate, I already said that. Yes, Filipinos in the U.S. don't have to worry. In fact, a lot of the Filipinos there have reacted to our ambassador's statement to say that, well, you're not actually being targeted, So that's true. Now, as for criminals, well, President Trump was talking about illegal aliens who raped and murdered Americans, and very few aliens have done that, undocumented aliens. So I don't think Filipinos whose offense is just jaywalking have to worry about anything, no? But avoid drug offenses. That might be more typical, no?
Always good advice
Filipinos.
yan, no, Yusek, to avoid drug offenses anywhere in the world. But if we may, no, Yusek, can we move on to another topic? Of course, Mary Jane Veloso, how she is doing, what her possibilities and her chances are now that she has been repatriated back here to the Philippines. We've been trying to also understand the arrangement we have with Indonesia with regard, no, to Mary Jane Veloso specifically. So if you could enlighten us, what is this so-called practical arrangement that we have with them?
It's with the DOJ. It just talks about the agreement that she would be transferred to the Philippines, which she has been, to serve her sentence in the Philippines following the Indonesian court's decision. However, that same practical arrangement recognizes the authority of the Philippine president to grant reprieves, pardons, and clemency. So that's also quite crucial. And also, it says that she no longer can return to Indonesia. It also talks about an obligation of Philippines to reciprocate in case a similar situation arises in the future. Where Indonesia, though, is the one which asked for one of its citizens to be brought to Indonesia.
Well,
So the fact is, this arrangement is a simple arrangement, a simple agreement, which makes it easier for both parties to comply with their obligations and to have done this because this really was a landmark achievement. Personally, it's the greatest achievement in my career because I was in charge as head of the migration affairs for managing this with the embassy. So
huge
we
win.
thank Indonesia.
Yes.
So that's it. I mean, the DOJ is now in charge of the case.
Yusek, what would you say, or could you give us a clue as to what the interests of Indonesia here could be if they were to ask for something in exchange for the
Okay.
transfer?
First of all, Indonesia, I could say why they did this. Of course, it's a new president. They want to project something positive about their human rights situation, relation to other countries, and so forth. Now, about this, simple. It's simple. In case there's an Indonesian who is on life imprisonment in the Philippines, and the Indonesians would prefer that that Indonesian be brought to Indonesia, then I am sure they would be expecting that the Philippines would positively respond to such a request. But may I clarify, they have not made any such request. They did not mention any person or any pending request in the future. It's just in agreement.